Oversight. We'll get started. I know people have a lot of places to go still. Senator Robertson, if you will.
You don't have a quorum.
We hold on. Let's see. 1, 2,
You need 7 for a quorum.
Our rule says 6.
Okay.
6.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're good.
I apologize.
Okay. You, Mike, too. We got you, sir.
If you'll bow your head with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we praise you today, Lord God, and we thank you for the beautiful day you've given us, God, and the rain and the cool temperatures, God. We ask today that you will always remind us that for us to be successful, we must have open minds and open hearts, Lord God, and the courage that we consistently need to stand for the values that we've learned from you. We ask that you bless us today, bless this meeting, and keep your hand on us as we go through serving you. We ask these things in your precious name, in the name of your Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Appreciate that, Senator Robertson. We are here for this morning, and we've got 4 items on the agenda. I'm going to ask Senator Dolezal, SR 37, looks like LC 470696, and you are what number, sir? If you would like to.
12.
Number 12. We'll turn you. There you go. And if you'll present for us, we would appreciate it.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We voted Senate resolution, which is a constitutional amendment, out of this committee last year. It's been remanded back from rules. The bill would change the Georgia Constitution to implement term limits on the General Assembly and the Lieutenant Governor to 12 consecutive years for each the House and the Senate, 2 consecutive 4-year terms for the Lieutenant Governor. And on the Senate side, it would change the Senate terms to 4-year terms while keeping the House terms at 2. Service in one chamber would not count towards or against service in another chamber. This would not apply until 2024 when it went into effect, at which the clock would start ticking for any of us who were in office at that time fresh. So in other words, if you've been here for 20 years, you would have 12 years after that would go in, after this would go into effect. We had debate and discussion, Mr. Chairman, as you know, on this last year. Before we pass this out, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think that we probably can move on with this one pretty quickly, since I think we all remember this from last year.
Okay. Okay. Any questions, comments, or pretty simple? Anyone have heard before? Will of the committee?
Motion do pass.
Motion do pass by Senator Robertson. We have a second. We'll give it to Billy. We want him to have more. Okay. And we've got all in favor. Raise your right hand. Yeah, you're on again. Okay. All opposed? Okay. Okay. One there. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that, Greg. Thank you. And see how far that one gets. And I think it's good. Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. Senator Anderson, SB 279, LC 470935. Is she here?
She's not like to speak.
Okay, I'll let, okay. Let's see, number 10, please, sir. Thank you. Senator Dugan.
Yeah, this is, she's wanting to put in a recognition of the original 33, part of the Reconstruction group that was unseated and removed from office right after the Civil War. As you know, we have a statue and a plaque outside. This would, as in conversations with the senator, this would be inside the building, kind of downstairs where she's got a spot for it down there. The Capitol's got a spot for it down there.
Okay.
But it was threw some people off when it said a monument. Statue is a statue, plaque is a plaque. Monument just leads a little bit of flexibility into the design. But my understanding from her, it is a plaque inside the Capitol building.
Okay, plaque inside the building.
Different thing.
Any comments, questions in reference to that? And is that not under the guidelines? There's a committee here for the Capitol. Am I correct too,
Yes.
Senator Dugan?
Yeah, we don't get to do it. We just authorize it to be done, and then there's a committee that
Puts that together.
takes it from there.
Okay.
Yeah, and as the senator pointed out, it is all private funding.
All private funding too?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Any other comments or questions? Don't see any. Okay. Yes, Senator Jackson.
Yeah, motion do pass.
What, okay, number 11, okay.
A motion do pass.
Motion do pass. We have a second on that? Got a second? Okay, second. Senator Dugan. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Oh, the right, okay, no.
I'm left-handed.
All opposed, okay, and that passes. Very, very, very good. The right-handed fellowship, right? Okay, look it up, good. All right, very good. Thank you on that. Okay, next on the agenda, Senator Davenport, SB 108 LC, the LC, excuse me, SB 108 and it's LC 338743S. And Senator Davenport, if you will, you are number, I guess you're
Number 2.
you're witness number 2. We got you in the witness stand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and to the members of the committee. I am delighted to bring this morning SB 108, and the substitute is 8743S. We passed this out of committee last year, and with the substitute, and we wanted to make sure it was recommitted, got bogged down, but we want to pass this again this year. This legislation will create the Georgia Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired to take over blindness advocacy and service delivery with a focus on employability and the quality of life from the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency. They just want their separate commission. And we looked at this last year, and the commission would be made up of 6 people, 6 from the blind or visually impaired, 2 appointed by the governor, 2 appointed by the lieutenant governor, and 2 appointed by the Speaker of the House. DHS had wanted to make sure that the money followed the commission, and we talked to legal counsel, and that's why we have the substitute there to make sure that this happens. We have some advocates here this morning, and we have one that's she's 4 years old, and one that's 15 months. And this community want to make sure that we support them and make sure that they have a place. They feel like they've been neglected, and of course they came and testified last year, and we passed this out favorably last year in this committee. But we want to make sure that they understand and they know that we support their community, support them, and we want to make sure that they have the skills to be employed and that they have a good quality of life. If you have any questions for me, be happy to answer them. And I think we have legal counsel over there also. 'cause they did it.
You're number 2. Number 2. Senator Robinson, a question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Senator. As someone who has had a close relative who was visually impaired since birth, I appreciate your attention to this. Can you tell me how they were underserved by the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency?
They told me that sometimes they called over there with some of their problems and they were not fully taken care of. So I am not quite sure of all the extent of that, but they just want to have their own commission.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Number,
Because I think the state of Georgia, in all our agencies, we really try to take care of various communities.
Yes, ma'am. And I actually have a facility in Warm Springs that's a part of the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency, and I know they do a Herculean effort at taking care of everybody. And I was just concerned that if we start splitting off different pieces from there, at some point, do we need to start looking at possibly establishing multiple commissions because of multiple issues? Because I know we still do things with the the visually impaired, with those who suffer from hearing impairment and other things? Or is it something that we need to address within the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency if there are inadequacies within that already existing government body?
Now, I am not sure if that agency, I'm sure that they do all they can for, they might be understaffed or whatever, but we want the blind and visually impaired to know that the legislators and that the people in leadership value them, and we want that quality of life to be good.
And I agree with you on that. Thank you.
Okay. Or,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions would dovetail along with the senator from the 29th regarding Center for the Visually Impaired and how would this interface with them, and then also Voc Rehab. Is there anybody here from Voc Rehab, by the way? I think that would be a key component to making sure that we have not an overlap of services, but making sure that we have adequate services, but not an overlap of services.
Okay.
So, in the center,
DSH wanted to make sure that the money followed the commission, whatever funds that are there, and legal counsel might can speak to that too, because they did the substitute for us.
okay. Go ahead.
in the center in Bainbridge, how does this interface with the center in Bainbridge? Can y'all?
It's all under the commission. It all falls under the commission.
Hold on just a sec. Wait just a second. We're going to take outside. We'll come to you in just a second as far as that. Your question back again would be
Again, how does it interface with Center for Visually Impaired? How does it interface with Voc Rehab? How does it interface with the center in Bainbridge? What's it called? I forgot. Georgia Industries for the Blind. Yeah. How would it interface with those? Is my question. I'm sorry. Oh, ma'am, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I beg your pardon.
Okay.
I shouldn't have a crossfire.
No. Okay. Senator Jackson, you were what number? 11. Okay, 11, Senator Jackson.
For my understanding of the bill, that center in particular would be taken over by the Commission for the Blind. So it would continue to operate with the funds. I mean, that's, I think, the reason why for the substitute is it makes sure that the funds that have been used historically will continue to be used for that center and for other things. So, but it would continue to operate.
Okay. Senator
Yeah,
Davenport.
all services now.
Speaking to the mic.
Yes, all services now, everything now that is there will continue to operate there, but it will be under the commission.
Okay.
And the commission is appointed by the governor, lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House.
Okay. And Senator Miller, if I'm correct, in your comments, I think, were someone from the commission really should comment to us on their input for how they see this as well. I think that's something that needs to be done just to be able to hear them at the same time. And so what we may do is we may hold the next meeting, but I think somebody from the commission really ought to be present is how I see that in doing that portion. You're okay?
You crystallized it.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions before we take outside Senator Dolezal, number 12?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I see mention in here of an executive director. I'm unclear, though. Is that somebody who serves on the board, or is that a full-time role? What's the...
I think that's going to be a full-time role.
Okay. They would be separate from the commission, then?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions before we go to individuals, public comment? Okay. Is it DJ?
Yes, sir.
DJ
McIntyre.
McIntyre, thank you. Thank you for coming. I see you have a guest with you as well.
I do. This is Daniel.
Daniel,
He'll
okay.
be my charming face. So we're speaking in support of the commission bill, and thank you, Senator Davenport, for doing this work. So I can't speak because I'm clearly sighted, but I'm going to speak on behalf of my mom, who now suffers from dementia. So she doesn't remember dealing with vocational rehabilitation services. But after my parents separated, we needed to get mom working. She had been a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids, raising us, homeschooling us, and everything. Had never touched a regular computer or anything like that. She'd done Braille computers, knew Braille, but other than that, technology on the rise in the mid-2000s, you know, she's got to learn. We could not get vocational rehabilitation to teach her computer. I had to teach her from someone who doesn't even know where the on button is, how to work Windows, how do you get a Word document written, how to do email, all of those things. I trained her. She's now way better at it than I am. She can run Zoom calls and things like that. And then when we did have counselors, we switched counselors every 6 months when her cases were open, and we'd call, hey, we want training. Hey, she wants to get a job. Can you please start figuring out what we need to do, what jobs are available for someone who's totally blind? And they're like, oh, well, we'll get to you. Next counselor, same. I mean, we went this over and over again. When they did finally start giving us jobs, they sent me a job to apply for her. They wouldn't apply for us, which is one thing they're supposed to help you with if you can't navigate a computer or a website well. They sent a job for her that said library assistant. And I was like, oh, cool. You know, she'll do something in the library. Putting books on a shelf, you know. I know you want him. I know you want him.
I think we have another committee member that would rather hold
and so there's no specialized counselors anymore in the vocational rehabilitation for blind and low vision services, and they don't even have enough computer training staff. So if you come in as a newly blind person, you've never had to learn what a screen reader is, where it's talking to you. That's really different than looking at the screen and saying, oh, I'm, in a Word document, I just clicked the floppy disk for save. That's completely different than having to listen to it say file, save as, open, new. It's a whole different training. And one, they don't have the computer staff. I actually went into training for that and then decided having kids was more important for the time being. But they don't even know. If you call the counselors, they're like, oh, what do you mean you need a screen reader, you need a computer? Because they're not trained. They're just counselors in general, in a broad spectrum. And it just makes it really disheartening, because you come in as someone who's losing your vision, or you've been blind your whole life and now you need to, like my mom's case, she needed to get a job. She is completely capable of managing things and doing all these amazing jobs. But you're getting counselors that don't even know where to start the blind person. What are you talking about? What do you mean you can't see the screen? Like, it's right there. She can't see the screen. Like, she literally cannot see this. And I think the commission bill will help, just because we'll have our own entity. We'll have people who know about vision loss. They understand the blind community. They can actually help in getting those jobs, getting the resources, knowing where to get Braille computers. The device my mom has is about $7,000. It's something we didn't get. There's a grant that we used to get that type of thing for her, but most people don't have $7,000 in your back pocket when your computer crashes. And these people would have those resources. They'd have some of that funding help. And we really just want to see blind people get back into the workforce. And with that, we've found all the statistics are out there. If you hire a blind person, their tendency to work for you is better, and they're going to work longer than most of your sighted people. And they're better because they don't want to be on welfare. They don't want to be getting Medicare. They don't want disability. They want to be contributing members to society, but we're coming up against vocational rehabilitation, and they're just like, well, you're at the bottom of the list. Right now they're doing order of service. They're like, look, you have one disability. We need to take care of these people who have multiple disabilities, or someone in a wheelchair. It's really easy to get them in rehab because mentally they're fine. They can see things. We just need to get them a wheelchair, or they're deaf, so they just need a lip read. These things that are easier for them. Yeah. And they can just throw money, and then there's statistics. Oh, yeah, we got all these people jobs. But we have blind people who could do those same jobs, but just require a little more hands-on care.
Gotcha.
And that's what this commission bill will do, and I really, really hope we get it passed, because I've been working on this for at least 10 years, and I would love to be able to go into the next couple years helping the commission and helping spread the awareness that blind people, they can do everything. I mean, she raised me, and I'm really appreciative.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, DJ. Thank you. We appreciate that. All right, okay. Yes, sir. Question, Senator?
Yes,
you
Senator
number two?
Robertson.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Okay.
you, Ms. McIntyre. I think this is Daniel's second foray. I remember working with him during voter rights and
Yes, sir.
and voting for the visually impaired. So I listened to your testimony, and I feel, you know, the emotion that you're expressing. So if I put it in a nutshell, are you saying that Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency is failing our visually impaired?
Yes, sir. And we've had talks with 3 of the past executive directors. I don't remember the one that was the one before this current one. We actually had coming to meetings with our Georgia Council of the Blind and National Federation for the Blind about the services. And he said, I can help, but I can't make the money fall from the sky.
And you're saying that they've been failing for at least 10 years?
Yes, sir.
And your statement you just made, talking about money falling from the sky, he's saying he can't do it under his current budget?
He was saying because of the way that all of the money was flowing, they would eventually get to blind services. For some reason, helping the blind is at the very bottom of their list every year. And I don't understand why. I understand that it requires specialized training. Some of that could be done really easily, but they seem to think that serving the blind requires a certain list of degree and things that they don't feel like they can do in a reasonable time.
And that is not a priority within the agency based on your experience, right?
Correct, yes,
Okay.
sir. And you have more testimony, someone who's currently has a case open that will be speaking and
Thank you,
sharing
Ms.
that.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. McIntyre.
Okay. Thank you, DJ. We appreciate that. Thank you. Betsy
Okay, Graham. Yes.
Greenwich? Grinovich, okay. Cicely.
The mic's right.
Okay, I'm going to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. We have been working on this a long time, and what's happened over the years is that the blind community, it's now prioritized to get those back to work, no matter what your disability is. And for the blind community, we are the most expensive pretty much, so we're always put at the bottom. The confusion I'm hearing among the committee, though, a commission is the group of people, but it's also the organization. The Commission for the Blind is the name of what it would be called. So it's the commission in that it has its own entity. It's just focused on blind, deaf, blind people. The commission is also your members on that board, but the director would be employed full-time for the commission. I just want to review some of the talking points real quickly, not all of them because there are too many. But one of the first things that DJ's already covered is that the employment. If you check other states, and I don't have the figures right in front of me, but like Iowa, you'll find the blind people in the states that have a commission, more of them are employed. The proficiency of Braille, boy, is that going by the wayside, because so many people now of your blind community and visually impaired are illiterate, because no one is taking the time to teach them Braille because the auditory is there. I can tell you from growing up blind, I could never do auditory. I have to touch it. If I could see, I would have to see it and not hear it. I do some listening, but I prefer Braille. The ability to travel independently, that's not taught as much anymore either. So your newly blind may go months and months without ever learning how to use a cane, or if they decide to get a dog. But even if they get a dog, you need to use a cane because there's times without the dog. If the dog is retiring and you're in between dogs, that could take several months. As my daughter already covered the one I was going to cover about that we can do almost anything. I did end up with a job for a while, but I don't think they found it. She'll have to tell you. But I did end up being a Braille transcriptionist at a school in Walton County, and I worked there for about 3 years. Senior citizens, are they going back to work? No. But our blind population's increasing, and they're left. They're left with nothing. They don't know how to get around in their house. They don't know how to cook. They don't know how to match their clothes up, what techniques they can use, because no one's training them because they're not going back to work. And then you have those who are not properly trained, the different employments, like she's already explained to you, so I want to go over that. Because a lot of these counselors aren't prepared to work with blind people. They're trained for the others. And also like most of our blind people, like she said, want to work. I couldn't now, but most of them do want to work. And we would like to see so we can become one of the top states for those that want to be employed. Yes, it's a big change, but no, we're not being served. And for this equipment, most blind people can't get it because you have to have a dual sensory loss to get something like this now, to not have to pay for it, which I do. But others that need it are not getting it. So thank you, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer or defer to my daughter.
Okay, thank you, Betsy. Anybody, any questions? Anything? Okay, no question, but thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is it Cecily? Cecily Nipper?
Yes. Come this way to my voice. I'll do you well. Shoulders in your way. Walk.
Another friend.
Walk. Walk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Cecily Nipper, and I'm the president of the Georgia Council of the Blind. We are an advocacy organization who works on these issues. I myself am visually impaired. I have some vision, but not much. It's getting less and less. And I have a current case open right now with vocational rehabilitation. I do believe that they want to help, but I believe the systems are not in place to help blind people. In fact, when I called to make my application, I called every week for 6 weeks trying to get someone to help me fill out an application. It took me 6 weeks to get an application filled out. Then I was told it would be at least 6 months before I qualified for any training. Well, the training I need is to help me keep the job I have as a transcriptionist. And in order to keep that job, I have to learn how to use a talking computer. So what do I do for 6 months? I'm on my own. When it came time to learn Braille, I was told we don't offer Braille instruction. You will have to go outside to get that Braille instruction yourself. So there are definitely some obstacles there to receiving services. I was told that they are considering getting some counselors who are dedicated to the blind and visually impaired. So that will mean a change in counselor for me if that takes place. However, that's a promise that's been made multiple times before, so I don't know that that's going to happen, but that is our hope. In any case, there have been a number of obstacles to me, and I believe if there were a commission that I would not be left behind and forgotten. As a matter of fact, one of the times that I called, I was told, well, Ms. Nipper, we had 2 blind people apply for services in the same week, so we must have mixed you up. Now, that did not make me feel cared about and noticed as a visually impaired person. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions? Any of that? Anybody? Great. Senator Dolezal.
For being here. I'm curious, the organizations you lead, have you all identified approximately the number of people in the state of Georgia that are afflicted with either visual impairedness or complete blindness?
I don't know exactly. I know it's a large number. As far as members of our organizations alone, between my organization and the Federation for the Blind, that number comes is only in the hundreds, like maybe approaching 1,000 people. But there are certainly more than that. I don't know the statistics, though.
Thank you.
200,000, I'm being told.
200,000 in the state of Georgia?
For 2019, yes.
Wow.
I don't have any more than 20.
Okay.
Which would be 2% of the state's population or so?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okey-doke. Thank you. Appreciate your input and comments. I think what we're going to do here is I'm going to take some discretion here, Senator Davenport, not to do this. I'd like to have someone from the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency just speak to us as far as that portion, if we could do that, and take this up on our next meeting as far as that, so we can get that. Yeah. Go ahead.
As an elected official
Right.
and the sponsor of this bill,
Right.
I'm not here to say that Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency, GVRA, is not doing their job. Advocacy groups have come to us to say that.
Right,
But
right.
I'm here to try to get some help for them.
I understand.
And to let them know that the Georgia State Senate supports them and feel that they are valued, and want them to feel that they are valued in this community. When the disabilities group came to the Capitol a few years ago, and the Senate treated them with dignity and respect, everybody that came, I got calls afterwards to tell us how much they appreciated this. So we want them to know that the people in the Senate value them, and we support them in their efforts.
Yep. Absolutely, and I want to do that only because it affects another organization that we're talking about creating from, but I do that. But thank you for bringing this, because I believe this is that we need to help those people become self-sufficient as much as we can, and we need to provide that help. And it's tough enough when you can see and hear to get things done, and when you can't see, it even makes it tougher. But thank you all for being here as well, and we'll put this on priority, and what we'll do is ask them to be here for our next one so we can move on that, okay? Okay, thank you. Yes, number 9. Yes, sir, Senator C.
I just want to quickly say, I am with you. My grandmother was blind, so I get it. So just know when you leave here, Senator C is with you.
Yes. Okay. Okie doke. Thank you, Senator Davenport. I
Thank you very
appreciate
much,
that.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman and
We'll
committee.
plan to take that up on our next one as when we meet again. All right, we've got one more. Senator Walker, good to have you this morning. And I wanted to say this, is that I was very impressed with the talents of our senators in baby handling. I thought that was very, very good as well. And okay, if they need additional workers, but that was good to see. All right. Senator Walker is going to be at our podium. All right, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee, and I appreciate you moving me around on the agenda. I had the privilege of speaking to the FFA breakfast this morning over at the freight depot, and a lot of those young people will be over later in the day. I hope you get to visit with some of them. It's an impressive group. But I bring before you Senate Bill 337. I'm looking at LC 280365. This is a retread, really, of a bill we had last year in front of this committee. The committee passed out favorably Senate Bill 218. In fact, Senate Bill 218 passed the Senate with a vote of 51-1. It got tied up in the House where they had added some other legislation to it. Imagine that. And but this is a simple measure. We already have laws on the books to deal with local elected officials that are indicted for a felony. There's already a process in place, commission that would be established to look at the situation and see if that felony indictment impedes them from effectively performing their duties in the local elected office. And if it does, if the commission determines that it does impact their ability to do their job, then they would be removed from office, and the locals would have to replace that position until the case is adjudicated. This simply makes it where they do not have to pay the removed elected official to prevent them from having to pay two officials simultaneously. In other words, the person that replaces them doing the job, and then having to continue to pay the person that's been removed from office. If they're found innocent or reinstated to their job, then they would receive the back pay that was withheld. So that's what it does. It's a companion bill to Senate Resolution 134, which deals with state elected officials, your constitutional officers, and the legislature. That required a constitutional amendment. It passed the Senate 51-1, and it passed the House 169-0, and it'll be on the ballot in November. So this is the same concept for constitutional officers and legislators that's on the ballot in November, simply dealing with your local elected officials, and they're spelled out in the bill.
Okay.
I think beginning in line 13 or 12.
Okay, Senator Walker, any questions? I see Senator Jackson is Levitt. You're on, Senator Jackson.
Thank you. So my recall may be imperfect. I'm sure it is. But I believe that in the previous bill, as it related to statewide offices, there was a provision in the law that made sure that the monies that might be owed to the person were held in trust so that if a payout needed to happen, it would be available. That's not included in this bill. Can you speak to why you're not ensuring that people can be paid their back pay if they're entitled to it?
Well, my recollection is not perfect either, but I recall that we took that out of the SR 134 because we felt like the full faith and credit of the state of Georgia did not warrant a escrow account or trust fund. I mean, if we can't pay that, we're in bigger trouble than we got bigger problems.
Have you been to our cities?
So this is just kind of mirrors that. That's a point worthy of discussion, I suppose.
All right, Senator.
I mean, it's saving if they can't pay the. Basically, if the city is struggling financially, this helps them by not making them pay two people at the same time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they're already struggling, this bill makes it better. So I don't know that I don't know from a policy standpoint if that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if they're failing financially, this helps them with their budget.
Right, but if the person is found to not be guilty, this bill entitles them to back pay. So all of that money that the city was saving, they were actually giving it to another person. And so is there anything to ensure that the person who was found innocent actually can receive their back pay? And maybe an escrow account isn't the way to do that, but I just want to name that I'm concerned that, because I think it's important for us to remember an indictment is not proven guilty. It's not guilty. It means somebody has accused you and that there might be some evidence that suggests it. And so there is a very strong likelihood that someone could be indicted and that later be overturned, and they would be entitled to a year, 2 years. This is what we're on the hook for with Georgia, right? 2 years worth of salary. And I have some cities that I represent that I don't know would be able to come up with 2 years worth of back pay while they were paying someone else without us making some type of provision to ensure that they could pay that back pay.
I would take issue with your characterization that it's a strong possibility that they're going to be reinstated.
There is a possibility.
There is a possibility. I don't know that it's strong. I mean, but the process, it goes before a commission. So they're not going to be removed from office for a DUI necessarily. They shouldn't be unless maybe they're the police chief, I guess. But if they're a city councilman, a DUI doesn't necessarily mean they wouldn't be able to continue to perform their city council duties. So it's not necessarily that if they're indicted for a felony, they're immediately going to be removed. There's a process involved, and the commission is going to look at an independent commission is spelled out in the current law, is going to look at the situation, and I feel like the commission would also look at whether the likelihood of them being innocent or not, I think, would come into play. But you raise a valid point.
Okay, Senator Hickman, you got a question, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this. I agree with it, and I appreciate it. I just want one clarification. I think you may have clarified this for me last year. When we mention county government here, because the city is inside the county, it also covers city officials also?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
So starting on line 12, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, let's just read that. So the term public official means any elected county officer, any elected member of a county governing authority, any elected member of a city, county, consolidated government, any member of a county, area, or independent board of education, any school superintendent of a county, area, or independent school system, any solicitor general of a state court, any elected member of a municipal governing authority, any member of the Public Service Commission, and any district attorney. That's already in current law. My bill just simply says you would cease paying them until the case was resolved.
Okay. Okay, Senator Roberts.
Just point of clarification, if I read that right, Chairman, the only unelected individual in that group that you just went through would be the school superintendent, correct? In many cases?
Yes, sir.
Where
and
they
I-
would be appointed by an elected school board, and so.
And I guess there may be some school superintendents are elected. I'm not
that
positive.
could be. I know our state superintendent is. So, and we've experienced this in years past where a statewide elected official was indicted and had to be removed from office. We had somebody move into there, and so the taxpayers of Georgia paid 2 salaries until that individual had his day in court in which he was adjudicated guilty, but the taxpayers were still out hundreds of thousands of dollars a year because of the fact we had 2 individuals sitting in the same seat, even though one was suspended from
That's correct. I
operations.
think
Is that
it
correct?
cost the state treasury about $400,000 just in salary and benefits alone, and he was found guilty on all 36 counts, if I remember right.
Thank you.
Senator Jackson.
I want to just note and reiterate once again that an indictment is not being found guilty. And I have grave concern about us removing a person's source of income and livelihood while they have not had due process. We are a people in this country who believe in the right to due process. And so I understand that we had an experience in this state in which we had to pay for a really long time for someone who was guilty, but there are people who get indicted who are innocent, and we would be removing their livelihood, their salaries, simply on an indictment, and that's not enough. And I want to further just reiterate the importance of making sure that we have due process for all of our elected officials, because any one of us could be accused and they could find some evidence that may not lead to our guilty, and we would lose a salary. Now, for those of us who aren't living on our salaries, maybe that's not a problem. But for people who are feeding their families, who are trying to keep a roof under their house, for them to lose their salary before they go before a court of law is not okay. I think that we need to be putting emphasis on a speedy trial, because some of this would have been, we would not have been paying for months and months and months and months if the person had gone to trial speedily. To me, that is a greater priority than removing somebody's salary in the event that they may be innocent.
Okay, hold on just a second. Senator Robertson.
Yeah, first of all, and I think what Senator Jackson speaks of is, as far as the indictment, I understand. Now, speedy trial is not the right of the prosecutor. Speedy trial is the right of the accused. So whether the accused wants a speedy trial or not, that's entirely up to them. And in many cases, when we talk about public officials, the last thing they want if they're drawing a salary, especially when they've been indicted on something based on evidence that they know they're guilty of, the last thing they want is a speedy trial, because a speedy trial only leads to the severance of their income sooner. And I agree with the senator when she talks about certain individuals being indicted, and an indictment is not necessarily a conviction or is not a conviction. And if we're talking about someone working at Circle K or somebody working at a bank or something like that, then I wholeheartedly agree. I think the ethical standard for a public official, somebody who puts themselves on a ballot and goes out to serve the greater good of the entire community, I think the ethical standard is much higher. The ethical bar is much higher. Therefore, the risks should be much higher. And I think in the situation that we experience, I know the cities that I represent throughout District 29, both great and small, are sufficient enough that if one of their local officials should fall into this trap, then they would be able to put that money aside and wait for that official. And any attorney worth the law degree hanging on the wall understands that, and understands moving forward the guilt or innocence of their client, and would understand that once their client was exonerated, if they were exonerated, that the funds would be there to pay for their legal defense, along with sustaining their family. But the line of ethics, the line of criminality is even brighter for those of us who are elected and serve in public office. And so I don't think the chances of the poor innocent public elected official falling into something like this, I don't see that happening as much as I would outside of it into the general public and those citizens working day in and day out.
Thank you, Senator Robertson. And
Mr. Chairman, could I address that issue?
Let you go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Again, I just want to stress that it's not just any indictment, it's a felony indictment, and it's got to be a felony indictment. This is current law that it rises to the level where the commission decides that they were unable to effectively perform their duties. I think our constituents want us to be good stewards with their taxpayer dollars, and I think the vast, vast majority of our constituents would not understand paying somebody that's no longer doing the job. If it's the only, it is a serious matter, and I am for due process for sure. I do think this has due process built in, but if you are not performing the job, you need to go get another job and not just sit on your hands and wait and hope you are reinstated. And that's my humble opinion. It's just a philosophical difference of opinion, and that an elected official ought to be able to get gainful employment in some other area unless their felony is so egregious that nobody would want to hire them, which often might be the case.
Okay. Senators Dolezal and then 12 and
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My predecessor was indicted while he was in office. And I want to clarify, Chairman Walker, it's an automatic suspension of duty, correct? Upon a felony indictment?
No, sir.
Okay.
This
is putting that suspension in place?
No, sir. We're not changing that aspect of it at all. Current law calls for a local elected official that we read out all the ones that are covered under this. If they're indicted for a felony, then the governor establishes a commission to review the situation and see if the felony is an impediment to them being able to effectively do their job. If that's the case, if the commission determines that they can effectively do their job, let's say it's a rape or a some sort of egregious thing, child molestation or something, certainly they would need to be removed from that position, or embezzlement, and the commission would then say they got to be removed from office. But it's not automatic, no, sir. And I'm not a DUI, I suppose, is a felony, Chairman, or? Well, I can't really think. I don't know enough about the law to say what might be a felony that would not really impact your job, but there would be some.
Okay. Senator Hickman.
Yes, I make a motion that we pass.
Motion do pass. We have a second from Senator Robertson. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. All opposed? Okay. Okay. Senator Walker, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chairman.
And with that, we will dismiss. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.